Welcome viewers. Our guest today is Mr. Rob Brown, Managing Editor of the Dawson Creek Mirror newspaper. Thank you, Rob, for coming to our program.
Thanks for having me.
Please tell us a little more about the Dawson Creek Mirror newspaper.
Sure. Print media in Dawson Creek has been around since 1930. In May of 1930, two gentlemen just outside of Rolla put out the first issue, and print in Dawson's been going strong ever since. There's been iterations of the Dawson Creek Daily News and the Peace River Block News, and then the Mirror as a publication was started in 1980. It's been a well-established brand in Dawson, and then there's been iterations of combinations with the Alaska Highway News and the Dawson Creek Mirror. And then a year ago this week kind of thing, the Alaska Highway News and Dawson separated amicably. And we cover the south piece, and the Alaska Highway covers the north. And also in the Mirror family, we have the Northern Horizon Agriculture newspaper that actually celebrates 40 years this month.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And how are you and your team trying to give a new look to the Mirror?
Well, it's a lot of community-based writers, to be honest. It's the first time I've had an editorial budget or worked with a paper that's had an editorial budget since university, so that's a breath of fresh air. So we're trying to get past the idea of, well, we're the news and we're going to tell you what the news is. We'd like to hear from the community members in the form of columnists, contributors. I mean, any way you'd like to contribute to the newspaper, any newspaper, but specifically in this case the Mirror, we have a vehicle for you, be it photography, creative writing, letters to the editor, lots of things like that. So I mean, we're trying to add voices. It's easy to say with the Mirror, we're trying to reflect the community more than just having news reporters telling you what's happening at City Hall, which is still part of the coverage, but we'd like to expand the coverage to a little more stereo and 5.1, so to speak.
Thank you. And what are your responsibilities as the managing editor?
Well, right now it's a lot of marshaling the editorial force and trying to corral a lot of contributors and get more voices in the paper. And if there are no voices or there are less voices on a week, I'm still responsible for triaging, for lack of a better word, the content that makes it into the paper every week, and then obviously what rolls out online in relation to the print product, and then that's just breaking online throughout the week and day to day as well.
Great. And what areas have you covered in your journalism career so far?
In mine, I started 20 years ago now as an arts and entertainment writer, and then as moved professionally into more or less city news reporting, city beats for about a decade. A lot of serious stuff, a lot of crime, a lot of some adventurous stuff. In Winnipeg, I worked the north end of Winnipeg for 2 years as a news reporter. So a lot of serious stuff there going on. Not just crime, but social issues and poverty and positive issues as well that had to be covered. So it's been an exciting journey for me as a reporter, and I've always said for the last 20 years it's important as a writer to get paid more and write less as you get older, so eventually ascending to an editor's position and getting paid not to write, but read. And that's where we are now at the Dawson Creek Mirror. But it's exciting. I was saying to a guy the other day, we've actually a radio reporter and I actually chased jewel thieves down the street in our car, right, with the cops, because we had the scanners back in the day, right? So it's a fun job when you want it to be, for sure.
Great. And what are the main elements of a good newspaper in your opinion?
Sure. Well, on the print side, I really think of it as sequencing a record or an album, where you have to have an arresting front page, be that a combination of photography or headlines that are making people pick it up, and then as you're flipping, right, your page, your page 2 or page 3, you better have some news there, and it's it better be exciting news and relevant to the readers and relevant to either the tax base or ratepayers in any municipality that you're covering. And as we work your way through the paper, it's like anything else. You get into your B side of the record, and then let's get get some hot entertainment and some flashy looking photography. And in our case, I'm trying to go a little old school, so we've got actually a cartoonist in our paper, and that's something that you don't hear a lot of, certainly in the online and Twitter world. And in the same breath, it's going over great in the paper and then going over awesome online. Bringing some of these older school elements, into the paper and then bringing them back to the paper. And then as you work your way through the community section and the weekend section that is a sports section, and same thing. It's reflecting what's going on in the community, what's coming up. The idea is to be ahead of the issues, not just playing cover and this is what you missed everything, but this is what's coming up in the community and advancing those stories and advancing the community by letting people know what's coming up.
Great.
And that to me, that's the key of a newspaper, and that's any newspaper, but that's certainly what I'm trying to do, and we're trying to do at the Mirror.
Excellent. Thank you. And how can newspapers evolve and develop in today's electronic age, in your opinion?
Same kind of thing. I mean, it's being ahead of the issues, not just waiting for the press release to come in and then the email ding, and then we can all cut and paste. And instead of it being a typing race anymore, it's now a cut and paste race. Sometimes, when the local MLA or MP sends out a press release, everybody's getting it. So, I mean, it's a release. That's what it is. But the idea to me online is to again. Use that to augment the print, and use the print to augment the online copy when and coverage when it's different. But the idea is still the same for any newspaper or any media, is try to be ahead of the issues instead of playing catch up and following and being behind.
Right. And how do you promote community interests in your newspaper?
Well, it's like Al Pacino says with acting in the actor's school, we take all kinds, right? I mean, and like I was saying earlier, anybody that wants to contribute can. I mean, if you have money to spend and you'd like to advertise, we have that vehicle. If you'd like to write a letter, we have that. If you're in any way interested in writing, be that fiction, nonfiction, creatively, again, the newspaper's there. And then the whole idea of the newspaper is the information part. Anything that's going on can go in the paper, man. And even whether it's selling the ticket or not is irrelevant to the editorial side. And then we just, we try to be at everything we can and be ahead of things where we can. And when we're not, we like people to tell us, because that's helping us out too.
Thank you. And why is media considered to be the fourth pillar of democracy?
Yeah, that's a good question. I liken it to, it's the watchdog over the government agencies and then the services of the government, in the four pillars kind of example. But I liken it to the Old West, when the train track is there and four people fall off the train, and if your combination of people is the sheriff, the teacher, the banker, and then the publisher, you got yourself a village, and then away we go. And to me, that's to me what I consider those four pillars of democracy. When you include media in that government thing, it's in that government example, those are the four things, or the four basic things you need, and you need other things too, but those are the four things you need to fall off that train for the village to become a town, and then the town to become a city.
Right. Thank you. Please comment on the famous quote of Jim Morrison: "Whoever controls the media controls the mind."
Yeah, well, Jim said a lot of things, and Jim's got more readers and viewers than you and I combined will ever have. But I understand what he's saying. But it's like anything else. I mean, we were laying out the papers this week, and I had to not put things in the paper because we just ran out of space. I mean, is that us controlling minds? Slightly, because it is controlling, or not controlling, but it is determining what the most salient news is for the print product and the 32 pages every week. But I don't think we're into mind control through the television or through the newspapers or anything like that. But I mean, it is the voice. But in the same breath, with online and so many voices now, be it Twitter, social media, even other just media outlets, there's more than one opinion out there. So if you're only listening to one opinion and only reading one Bible, so to speak, that's probably not the best way to go about it. So, as far as controlling the mind and whatnot, at the end of the day, we're trying to document opinions and facts that are newses of the day and opinions of the day, and some people do have different opinions, but that's why we're in the business we're in. We're trying to be fair and salient and again, be that fourth pillar of democracy, if you will, in society.
Great. And do you agree that what happens on social media stays on Google forever?
Oh, totally. We're online. Yeah, I mean that is what we're doing in the print. The minute we put it down, and it's in the archives, and it's there to stay. And whether that's online or in the print, I mean that's the issue. And once you say it, as long as you're not wrong, and I don't mean wrong, I mean if you're not lying about it, but you're telling the truth, you're okay. And I mean, that's one of the, the tenets of newspapers and journalism as well, is if, you're telling the truth and you got that white hat, everything else is sort of secondary, because we're in the truth-telling business.
Good. And how do you think people should be careful while using social media?
Well, it's funny. I fall into this a lot. I mean, they should watch their language. I know, Lord knows I don't. But after that, again, as long as you're telling the truth, there's not too much to worry about. It's I guess regulates itself. After that, I mean, just watch out. Don't get gaslit online, and don't get into a flame war and these sorts of things. But beyond that, just conduct yourself accordingly, I would say.
Right. And who are your favorite journalists and why?
Sure. I got some Knowlton Nash. He's the Canadian veteran journalist that used to host the National every evening. Lord, before I was old enough to watch television, and then certainly when I was old enough to watch Hockey Night in Canada, he's the guy that would throw it at Don Cherry. And I actually got a chance to interview him and meet him when I was in university. So he is a big influence on certainly on my journalism career, if not the writing. Other people, let me think. Ben Bradley, an actual specific editor. Ben Bradley is the former editor of the Washington Post. Lowell Bergman, producer for CBS in the 80s and 90s. He had a few kind of high-profile stories. And then the one that I always bring up, and people don't think of him as a journalist, but he is. He's actually the guy that created 60 Minutes, which is Don Hewitt, producer of 60 Minutes, and great writer and producer of news. So those are kind of my pillars of media for Rob Brown, certainly.
Great, thank you. And what's the best thing you like about 21st century journalism?
The immediacy. In the same way that we're still working on be it a daily, a weekly, any kind of print product. The good thing about the online business is news is breaking. If news is real and breaking, we'll find out about it anywhere in the world within a couple minutes, and I think that's fantastic. Be it good news or bad, it's good to be connected. To me, it makes sense to be connected that fast.
Great.
Yeah.
And finally, Rob, what makes you so full of life?
I think that's a good question. I think well, for 20 years professionally, I've gotten to do what I've wanted to do since I was a kid, which was write, and be that for the newspaper or theater or all kinds of other projects. I've got to do that, and as long as you're telling stories that connect with people and connect to people, and are pretty direct in their presentation. Again, be that news media or fiction, can't go wrong. And that's certainly why I wake up every morning and think the next days can't be any better than today, because I'm doing what I love. So
great. And are you a poet also?
I am. Yes, absolutely. I've done a few open mics here and a few certainly in Dawson as well. You bet. Yeah.
Excellent. And what are your other interests?
Well, all kinds of writing. I do a lot of stage acting as well. So picked up a couple roles in Fort St. John actually this past year with Stage North, and the other editor and I, Matt, we just wrapped a dinner theater that ran in February here, and we're looking at what's happening in the summer and what's moving into the fall on the theater side, and then I'm certainly in the south looking at trying to cobble together some kind of film project in the first 2 quarters of 2017.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming to our program, and
You
we
bet.
wish you all the best.
Anytime. Thank you.
Excellent.